What's up, guys? It's Bono Sports Stalker BST back with you guys again, bringing you a short, quick little video on my NHL predictions video that I made for the way too early standings or whatever. That video I made like a month and a half ago or so. I've been getting a lot of comments on that video recently. People starting their own comment threads or whatever, and with the crazy offseason that we've had so far with the trades and the free agent signings, I figured that I'd go in and quickly do a quick revision of the standings and my predictions, because I think that what I had before isn't what's going to be happening now with the knowledge of what the different rosters will be. So most of the stuff's going to be generally the same. The Western Conference, I only have one or two teams being moved, but the East is the main conference where I have stuff being revised. So in the Metropolitan is the exact same. I still think Pittsburgh, Washington, and the New York Islanders, I still think those are going to be the three teams from the Metro to get those three spots in that order still. But in the Atlantic, I do believe that Florida will now get the second seed in the Atlantic and Boston will get the third seed. If you saw my original video, which I'll probably put up an annotation in the corner somewhere throughout this video, if you want to go see that. If you saw that video already, or if you just saw it, you'll know that I had Montreal in second place. But let's keep going down and I'll explain my decisions later. So after Florida, we have Boston, like I said before, and in the wildcard spots we have the Rangers and Philadelphia, which is also different from what I had before. And then after that, we just have all the missing teams, and I still have also revised those teams as well. And I'll just quickly show you the West. I'll get the West out of the way first. The only teams I changed here is Edmonton and Vancouver. I just swapped them. I have Edmonton doing better than Vancouver. I think Vancouver is going to be one of, if not the worst NHL teams this upcoming season. But it's not that big of a deal. The real meat of this video is going to be the Eastern Conference, and I'm going to explain as quick as I can why I'm going to make these changes. So first, I'm going to explain why I have Montreal not even making the playoffs at all. Without PK Subban, I believe that this team is incapable of making the playoffs because this is their number one defenseman, and I feel like Shea Weber is not going to be able to fit this Montreal defenseman system. Now, there's uncertainty of who he's going to play with on the defensive pairings, as opposed to as opposed to PK Subban already having somebody he's going to be playing defense with picked out precisely. It's very obvious who's going to be playing with, and he's already getting along with the team. But with Shea Weber, it's going to take some time for him to get used to this team. And the thing about this team, this Montreal Canadiens team, is that they rely heavily upon Carey Price. So basically, if you go back and you look every season where Carey Price has been injured, they've tanked and missed the playoffs, or they've tanked and done terribly. And so basically what I'm trying to get to here is without PK Subban, you don't have somebody to indirectly protect Carey Price. Now, you're going to think, well, how does PK Subban indirectly protect Carey Price? Now, here's my hypothesis here. It's pretty general, but if you might be able to understand what I'm trying to say. So, PK Subban is very important defensively, right? So, to make the other team's offensive zone time shorter, and to also make the Canadiens' defensive zone time shorter as well, you have to have pretty good defense, obviously, to create turnovers and give your team some opportunities to score. But the longer that the other team is in your zone, the longer there is somebody from the other team in front of your net, who in this case is going to be in front of Carey Price. Now, Carey Price, being injury prone as he is, doesn't really want people near him, which is why people tend to protect him, and they always have another Canadian near the crease to go try and shield that guy away from Price. Now, I believe since PK Subban is on this team, this is actually going to be a huge blow to their offensive zone time. Now, PK Subban is pretty good two ways. He's pretty good both ways of the ice on offense and on defense. But on defense, this guy was the biggest asset to this team. And I don't believe that Shea Weber has the capabilities to create turnovers like PK Subban does, which is why I totally think that the Nashville Predators totally won this trade. And so what I'm trying to get to here is that I believe that Carey Price will get injured again. And I do believe that they will miss the playoffs again. And their offense with Gallagher, Galchenyuk, I don't believe that's enough. I really don't think that's enough to get this team into the playoffs. So if you forget the notion of Carey Price, or forget the idea of Carey Price getting injured and them tanking, Galchenyuk and Gallagher, that's not enough to get this team into the playoffs. Shea Weber, who has no chemistry with the team yet, an injury-prone Carey Price, and a bunch of old guys, Thomas Plekanec, Markov. These guys are old. I mean, they really don't have much going for them. I mean, you have Andrew Shaw, who really doesn't bring anything to the table. They didn't get a very great draft pick. I mean, their draft pick was okay, but like, what is he going to do for this team? This team really doesn't have any players that they really need, so they don't really need offense. I mean, they could always get as much offense as they help. Their offense wasn't that great, but their defense is not going to be as good. And I feel like this is going to be a huge week for them. Carey Price is going to get his ass beat on a daily basis. He's going to be having to stand on his head every single game like he usually does, even with Subban and without him. I just don't think this team's going to make it. It's just going to be too much stress, and it's going to be a very brutal fight. And everyone's going to have to really contribute full time, no stop. There's got to be very few injuries throughout this whole season. If there are any injuries, they got to be short term. This team's got to be running full speed to even get a wild card spot, in my opinion. You guys are probably going to think I'm crazy. You're probably going to get a lot of dislikes, but I really think that PK Subban was so important to this team, and I just don't think that Shea Weber is going to be a good enough replacement, both chemistry-wise and offensively. And I just don't think Shea Weber is capable as capable as PK Subban to create turnovers and score on offense as well, and just be a playmaker in general. PK Subban has more points than, Shea Weber and PK Subban have the same amount of points, but if you look at the stat totals, PK Subban has way more goals than, PK Subban had, I'm sorry, I'm twisting my facts here. PK Subban and Shea Weber have almost the same amount of points, but PK Subban's played less games, and that just goes to show that PK Subban is able to achieve more than Shea Weber. That's not to mention that Shea Weber is older than PK Subban as well. So, if you could kind of understand what I'm trying to say here, the moral of the story for Montreal is you got to go full speed, no injuries, and you got to see all your players going in full time. All their prospects have to really contribute, because anybody gets injured, whether it be Carey Price, Shea Weber, Gallagher, Galchenyuk, who I believe are the main people in this team that are the playmakers. If any of them get injured, you're going to see a slump. There's no way they're going to be able to avoid a slump, because they need all these players contributing full time to really get anywhere, honestly. If you take out Gallagher and any of those guys, even so one of those random offensive people, they're going to have a struggling time, because then all of their lines have to be changed, and they're already skimped out, thinned out. The thinned out offense is going to have to get moved around even more, and it's going to be a really tough time for them. Now moving down, we have the New York Rangers, like I said before, but I decided to take Philly over, who did I have before? Oh yeah, Montreal. Taking Montreal out of the spot made everybody move up, so I have Philly in here instead. And the reason why I have Philadelphia in here instead is, I feel like this team finally is going to be able to do it again. See, Philly has this weird thing where they'll make the playoffs, they'll do pretty good in the regular season, they'll make the playoffs, and then they'll do really bad for like the seasons to come, and then they'll do good again. It's just this weird kind of rhythm they have. But I do believe this is going to be one of their years when they do make it. Now the Metropolitan Division is going to be very, very tough division to make the playoffs in, which is why I have all 5 teams from the wild cards and the 3 in the Metro. They're all from the Metro, and I think this is going to be a tough win for the tough bye for the Flyers. They're going to really have to fight just as hard as any of these other teams to get a playoff spot, but it's going to be really competitive in the Metropolitan Division. As with the Atlantic Division, you could get some leniency, some mistakes here and there, because Boston, Florida, Tampa Bay, Detroit, Montreal, that's definitely an easier division than Pittsburgh, Washington, New York Islanders, New York Rangers, Philly, Jersey. It's definitely more, the Metro is definitely a more difficult division, and because of this, I have the Flyers making second wild card. Now, this shouldn't stray you away from the fact that the Flyers are still going to be a damn good team. It's just that their division is going to be fucking good like the Central is, and they're going to get pushed all the way down, but I still think they're going to be a good team. I don't expect over 100 points, maybe 100 if they're good, but they're definitely going to still get in the high 90s and definitely make the playoffs. And my main reasoning for this is because their goaltending and their defense in general has really improved. Now, whether it be because of Shane Gostisbehere or because Michael Neuvirth has been shown to be good, I just think that this Flyers defense in general has become much better in the sense that they're able to really, start blocking more shots, lower the defensive zone time, and they'll also be able to put the puck in the back of the other team's net way more with Gostisbehere, especially since he's a great two-way defenseman. You have your traditional guys, Voracek, Giroux, the guys that you always see score. So they still have that core there. And I think that they're going to actually be able to pull it off again this season. Now, it's kind of uncommon for the Flyers to, repeat playoff seasons, especially in the 21st century. They haven't really done that very much. But I do think they'll be able to pull it off. I know a lot of people in the comments think that it's going to be the Flyers making the playoffs, and after giving it some time to look at it, I think that the Flyers are going to make it, but it's going to definitely be a gritty season. They're going to really have to grind out this season hard. It's going to be difficult for them. By no means is it going to be easy. Now, the Boston Bruins were not as good as the Flyers last year. Technically, they were short by just a few points, but like I said before, Boston's going to get third place because the division is easier. Philly may damn well be a better team than Boston by the end of next season, but I still think that Atlantic Division is not going to be nearly as good as Metro, which is why Flyers get pushed all the way down to the second wild card. Now I'm going to go briefly into all the missing teams, all the lotto teams down below the Flyers that didn't make the playoffs. So the 14th seed team, I believe, is the New Jersey Devils. Now the reason why I do not have the New Jersey Devils making it, even with all the crazy trades, and I'm getting a huge acquisition in Taylor Hall for somebody as simple as Larson, who hasn't even proven himself really yet. The reason why I still have them missing is even though Taylor provides that missing piece for their offense to really help them score more, which was a big problem for them, I feel like the loss of Adam Larson was actually a pretty decent blow to their defense in the sense that this guy could have really helped them on defense a lot more, but with him being gone, and Taylor Hall as his basic replacement, they're trying on offense. It's going to be a little tricky to see what's going to go on here. It's definitely going to be close between the Flyers and New Jersey, but it's going to be a little difficult to judge here. That was like my hardest pick was New Jersey or Philly. I just picked Philly because they were the better overall team when it comes to goaltending, defense, and offense. But New Jersey's got a stacked offense now, but it's kind of not, if you know what I'm trying to say. Like they have Hall, but then all their offensive powers are like not as old or is not as young, and they're pretty old. And you have also like their defense is okay, and then if you really look at the roster, you'll realize that this team's kind of overrated in the sense that you don't really have as many great players as you think they do. Now, obviously, Corey Schneider is a huge part of that defense and why they had as much success and why they got as much attention as they deserved. Oh, as they did, sorry. But I believe that Corey Schneider and Hall alone is not going to be enough to carry this team to playoffs. But I do think they're going to still end up being a good team because there is a reason why they're getting all this hype. But like I said before, if you sit down and you look at the roster, look at the stats from all their individual players, it's really not that good. If you look at their stats are average. You see on average 10 to 15 goals by each of these players, maybe 20 assists. They're okay. They're not crazy good, but I still think that they'll get this close to making the playoffs just because I believe that this whole team, regardless of age, they still have the will. They're going to be fighting just as much as any other team, especially with all the hype surrounding them, and they're going to really fight for that spot. Now, we already talked about Montreal, so let's skip to Detroit. I think Detroit is a team that's going to not only miss the playoffs, but see a considerable drop in their performance in every single major statistical category, whether it be points, goals for, goals against, home record, road record, all that stuff. And the reason why is just because this team is dying, and age is really hitting this team hard. Now, they do have these young guys, Mrazek and Dylan Larkin, and there's another guy, but I can't remember his name, but you get the point. They do have these young guys coming in, some of these prospects, but this is not good enough. Dylan Larkin is not good enough to be the future for this team. There's other teams that have young guys coming in who could be great replacement for the old guys and definitely could be the future of that team. However, Dylan Larkin in himself cannot be the future of his team. Peter Mrazek wasn't that good last year. Him and Howard did split the games pretty evenly, which is good for both of them, so they get a nice break, but they still get some ice time, so their ego still stays up. But Jimmy Howard was really cocky. He's getting old. He's losing his touch, and quite frankly, he always has great starts, but then chokes in the third quarter. He always chokes in the third quarter for whatever reason. Now, the thing about Peter Mrazek is that he's just really inconsistent. He's got to fix his consistency. Similar to people like James Reimer, they could be extremely good on their good days, but on their bad days, they just do very terrible. They'll let 5 past them. Peter Mrazek seemed very shaky at times, very inconsistent. And even though I didn't full-time watch the Red Wings because I'm not a Red Wings fan, I could very clearly see this in the few games where we played them. And the few games where the Bruins did play them, Peter Mrazek was nothing special, honestly. I think he's very overrated in the sense that people think he's one of the best goalies in the NHL up and coming, but he's really not. If you look at his stats, he's not that good, and obviously his defense, and his defense is just not that good either. And just talking about age alone, not only are you losing Datsuk, but Zetterberg and all these other guys are getting old too. And if you look at their stats, there's been a steep decline. The Red Wings went negative and the Red Wings plus minus was negative. They were scored on more than they scored. That goes to show how bad they were. If you make the playoffs, you should never, never, never be negative in plus minus as a team. And it's just, I don't feel like this team's going to be good enough, and this team's definitely a dying team. I just don't see them making the playoffs, quite frankly. When I think of somebody on the Red Wings producing, all I can think of is Dylan Larkin. And quite frankly, without getting Stamkos, because it was very obvious that they wanted Stamkos, they dump off Datsuk's contract with the Coyotes, which was the stupidest thing for the Coyotes to take. And they really wanted Stamkos, you can tell. But they didn't get Stamkos, and so now they're fucked. And their fans know that they're fucked. And quite frankly, they had no business being in the last year's playoffs. They were lost in 5 games to Tampa. They just got absolutely smoked. They had no business being there. They were not a playoff team. They didn't look good at all. And quite frankly, they were not good at all. I mean, they just really didn't deserve to be there. But honestly, I can't even fathom the Red Wings making the playoffs at all. I mean, I literally can't even imagine a possible situation where they could make playoffs. Maybe if Dylan Larkin scores 50 goals or some crazy shit like that, which is not going to happen, but I just cannot fathom a Detroit Red Wings playoff team. Now moving on, we have the Carolina Hurricanes, easily the most underrated team in the Eastern Conference. When people, and all these analysts too, when people just think in general, up and coming teams in the Eastern Conference, everyone thinks the Flyers, everyone thinks the Devils, and everyone thinks the Senators, the Sabres, the Leafs, blah, 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 blah. Nobody thinks of the Hurricanes. And the Hurricanes made some great acquisitions this offseason for nothing. They stole Teravainen from the Blackhawks. They got him for free. This guy is a very great player. Also, just because he's got that experience with being on the Blackhawks and their great coaching staff, so already comes over with experience, and he's young, and he's very good at what he does, and he provides a lot for this Carolina team. And this Carolina team has a great defense, and a lot of people don't recognize how much of a good defense this team has. Now, you have Cam Ward in net. This guy is a terrible goalie. I'm sorry, he got to give him props for 2006, but I'm sorry, Cam, you were a bad goalie. The fact that they were still able to almost outperform Minnesota, which was a playoff team last year, just goes to show how close this team is getting to actually making the playoffs. Now, similar to the Flyers last year, the Flyers kind of made the playoffs last second. Nobody really saw it coming, and nobody, quite frankly, really cared about the Flyers making the playoffs. And I feel like down the line, in maybe 2-3 more years, if Carolina plays their cards right, and they really, really work well, it's because what the GM's got to do with Carolina, he's got to really work his ass off in the offseason. This team just needs a little bit more refining and a good goalie, and I swear, you have a playoff contending team right here. Carolina is very underrated. This team is very good overall. They got a pretty good, young, talented offense. I know it's spotty here. You have really young guys here and old guys here, but they are working together. Their defense is great. It's so underrated. It's unbelievable how underrated their defense is. They just need a good goalie. That's really it. Cam Ward is not a good goalie. They got to get somebody in net who could actually stop and isn't 100 million fucking years old. Once they get a good goalie, this team is definitely a playoff contender. You see Carolina do better than Detroit, do better than Montreal. Seriously, this team is so underrated. Moving on, we have Ottawa, in my opinion, easily the most overrated team in the NHL. Even though they missed the playoffs last year, so many people are going crazy on social media. Ottawa's going to make the playoffs. How do you not have Ottawa making the playoffs? Guys, Ottawa is not as good of a team as you think it is. You have Mark Stone. Wow, he was a great rookie. Guys, he's overrated. He didn't do that good this year. He was okay. Erik Karlsson, obviously, great defenseman. Easily the best defenseman in the entire NHL, without a doubt. But you can't carry a whole team on yourself. Andrew Hammond was just a one-season wonder. Let's be honest. He didn't do crazy good this year. The other goalie they have, can't remember his name. He looks like a bowling pin. He's okay. I'm not going to lie. He's not bad goalie at all. He's not a bad goalie at all. But he's okay, and he's getting old. Something Anderson, but I can't remember right now. But the thing is that this team's relying upon their youth in Mark Stone and Mika Zibanejad. Mika Zibanejad got traded to New York. Exactly. This was a terrible trade by the Senators' part. Mika Zibanejad is a young player who scores 20 goals in his 2 seasons and is great on the special teams, and you trade him for Derek Brassard, who is a 27-goal scorer. But Derek Brassard he's getting older, right? So Derek Brassard was good with the Rangers, and he's going to a team that he wouldn't mind playing for, obviously. But the thing about Derek Brassard is you're giving up 3 years of experience. Sorry, not 3 years of experience. You're giving 3 years of age. As Mika Zibanejad, you could play with him longer and see him develop longer because you got him when he was younger. But Derek Brassard, you're already getting him when he's older. He's already got the New York Rangers play mentality in his head, and he's got to try and fit into Ottawa's system. And it's going to be a little bit more difficult. And not only that, but you're paying a lot more for Derek Brassard than you were for Mika Zibanejad, almost double for Derek Brassard. And what are you getting, really? You're not really getting much out of this trade. You're giving up Mika Zibanejad, a guy with a great potential in the future, and you're also giving up a pretty decent draft pick in the in the next draft. And just for Derek Brassard, I mean, he's good and all, but 27 goals is not crazy. Let's face it, 27 goals is good, but it's not crazy. Like, he didn't even hit 30 goals, and Mika Zibanejad was almost at 27 goals himself, and to give up a draft pick as well, I just don't see why this trade was even necessary for the Senators in the first place. And it's not like you're clearing cap space at all. You're actually losing cap space, and you're paying double the amount of money for a player that might not even do as well, especially since he's got used to getting chemistry with all his new players and stuff like that. He may not even do well for all we know. So this was definitely a terrible trade. I still don't know why they would do this. But yeah, overall, this team is super overrated. Their goaltending is okay. Their offense is not bad, just mainly because of Erik Karlsson, and their defense is not crazy good either. If you look at this team and you look at the years before 2014, right? Before they had that crazy year when they made the playoffs, and you look at that roster in, say, 2013, or sorry, before they made the playoffs in 2015. You look at 2014, 2013, whatever, and you look at that roster. Let's say the 2014 roster, and you compare that roster to this roster, you'll notice that it's fairly similar in the sense that most of your key players are still on the team. And you go, well, why did they make the playoffs in 2015? And that's because they got lucky. And you don't really get a goalie out of the woodwork like Andrew Hammond, go 20-0-1 or whatever he went, and then say, oh, we were a good team all year. No, you got damn lucky, and this guy really saved your ass. I mean, this team was nowhere even considered to be a playoff team 3 years ago, and then this guy comes up clutch out of the minors and saves your ass, and now everyone considers you a playoff team. And if you compare the rosters, they're the exact same. I don't know, and I feel like Ottawa is on its way out, especially because their offseason moves have not been that great. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I do not think Ottawa is going to make the playoffs in the near future. Now, moving down to Toronto, we have a huge potential team in Toronto, very young team. They're trying to go through an overhaul, sort of. You got Austin Matthews, you got Frederick Anderson. You got a lot of potential here for a good team. I do have them doing better than Buffalo and Columbus. I had said that they were going to be the worst team in the NHL when I made my previous video, but now I think they're going to be okay. A lot of potential here. They have the weapons. It's just what they could do with them. You have a great coach in Mike Babcock. Definitely could get it done. Definitely could teach Austin Matthews how to be a good NHL player. But it's gonna be interesting how the pieces fall together, how these lines will end up forming. It's very difficult to judge Toronto, especially just because of how bad luck they have. And it'll be interesting to see how they do. But definitely no playoffs at all. Not being able to get Stamkos was definitely a huge blow. I felt like if Stamkos was definitely going to sign with another team, it was going to be Toronto, especially since he would love to play with Toronto. He loved Toronto growing up, and they're a struggling team, and NHL players like to go to teams who are struggling but on the way up, have a lot of potential. And I really thought that Stamkos would be going to the Maple Leafs, if not re-signing. And he ended up resigning, so that right there kind of made Toronto fans probably disappointed greatly, because they really probably expecting Stamkos to sign. But nevertheless, they did get Austin Matthews, which is a great addition. You know, this guy's great. There's no way he's going to be bad. He's definitely going to win Calder. I'm just predicting it now. He's going to win the Calder. He's just so good. I watched some of his highlights. But yeah, there's no way you Leafs fans should be disappointed at this point. I mean, you guys are not going to make the playoffs, let's be honest. But, I mean, at least you're not the Cleveland Browns of hockey, at least at this point. Up next is Buffalo. I thought Buffalo was going to be doing better next season in this prediction than I thought before. But when you look at the teams that they're playing against, and you just look at the Eastern Conference as a whole, it's very competitive. There's not going to be much space for them at all. If you just look at all these teams here, there's really nowhere they can go. They're worse than all these teams. Even with Evander Kane, Ryan O'Reilly, this team's alright. I mean, Tyler Ennis is good. I like Tyler Ennis, I guess. But this team's alright. I mean, it comes down to there's too many good teams around them for them to really get anywhere. And the last team here I have is Columbus. This is definitely one of the worst teams in the NHL, like Vancouver. This team was a huge disappointment last year. Started off the season 0-8 and just never really recovered at all. Nick Foligno underperformed, and they had to trade Johansson for Seth Jones midway through the season, which really didn't fix anything for them at all. Rezgalov is not very good anymore. Their team is kind of old now. It's just they're no longer the team that they were in, say, 2014 when they made the playoffs. It's just not the same team anymore. No more Rick Nash. You know, they have a lot of old guys, like as in Nathan Horton, you know, players that they acquired years ago, expected them to be good, who ended up being busts. Players like Dubinsky, who should be performing better than they actually are, especially with the name and the respect that they carry with the name. Like, everyone pretty much gives Dubinsky a lot of credit, even though he's a little bit overrated. But yeah, this team's just not going to be good. Like even 2 years ago, when all the analysts were thinking that the playoffs would have Columbus making it this year. In the 2015-16 season, yeah, everyone thought Columbus was going to make the playoffs, and I knew that wasn't going to happen. I mean, everyone was predicting that Columbus was going to go crazy and make the playoffs, especially with this way their season ended 2 years ago in 2015. They went on like a crazy win streak, like 11 or 8 to 11 games or something, and everyone was like dick riding the Blue Jackets, and I thought there's no way they're going to make the playoffs, and I was right, and I don't think they're making the playoffs again either. So that's that for Columbus. I'll quickly go over to the West. Not much to see here. I already explained all this stuff. Like I said, you can just click the annotation I'll have somewhere in the corner or something to go see my explanation for all these other teams. But yeah, I have Vancouver being the worst team because this team really has no direction. Unlike Edmonton, they're trying to improve their defense. You can see what they're doing, right? It's very obvious that Edmonton is really trying to really improve their team overall. And they're even willing to make sacrifices such as Hall for Larson, and they really want to improve their defense, and they have a mission here, right? They have a goal. You know, they signed Lucic to fill in the spot for Hall, which is not a bad replacement. Could have been better, but you know what? They have different playing styles, and in the playing style that Lucic has, he's pretty good, so that's not a bad replacement, and this team actually has a direction. However, Vancouver, I really have no idea what they're trying to do here. The team is very old. They don't have any young players, and the few young players they did have from the draft, just because they've been so bad lately, haven't really been that great. Their goalie in Miller is definitely falling off a lot. I don't know why they're still keeping Miller. I mean, he's old. You know, he's not the Ryan Miller from 2008. It's not the same guy. So I really don't understand what this team's trying to do. They're re-signing all their old guys, that is in the Sedins, Burrows, and now they got Louis Eriksson, who's definitely a great player, but he's going to be 32 soon, so I don't know what the direction for this team is. They're just trying to get, I don't know, they want the Sedins to retire on them. I have no idea. This team's not going to make the playoffs for years to come. They're definitely the team that's decreased the most in ability in the past 5 years. They went from President's Trophy winners to shitting the bed and being last place in that NHL, damn close to it. So I really don't know what the sense of direction for this team is, but this video is already getting hella long, and I really wanted it to be short, but whenever I go on hockey rants, I just can't stop talking. So thanks for watching. I'm probably going to make a prediction for the playoffs, which is another, I'll probably call it like way too early NHL playoff predictions or whatever, and I'm going to be making it on these standings, and that's going to be coming out soon, if not the same day that this video comes out. So once again, thanks for watching, and I hope you subscribe to see my next video. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys.